Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Runners Only with Dom Harvey. Coming up, Nick Ashill.
I got slammed on my right side at 100k an hour. Tossed in the air, I remember that bit, and landing on my back in a ditch that wasn't visible from the road, which was a bit problematic.
You may not be familiar with the name, but Nick Ashill is a Wellington dude who's pretty much like the Forrest Gump in New Zealand. In August 2017, Nick was 81 punishing days into his run from one side of America to the other, Los Angeles to New York, doing around 50 kilometres a day. He didn't get to finish the run, though, because he was the victim of what he reckons was a deliberate hit-and-run accident from some meth head in a pickup truck. By the way, they're my words, not his. This accident left him in hospital fighting for his life. 16 surgeries, and 5 years later, Nick went back to the spot of his accident to finish what he started. It really is the epitome of a full circle moment. He's done some other pretty epic organised events too, like the Comrades Ultra Marathon in South Africa, which is something I really want to do one day, and the Marathon des Sables stage race in the Moroccan desert, which is something I can probably do without in my lifetime. This is definitely one for the running nerds, but I reckon it's also just a pretty interesting story about an ordinary Kiwi dude who's done some pretty extraordinary stuff, despite some serious big hurdles to overcome. All right, let's get into it. Really hope you enjoy it. Nick Ashill on Runners Only.
Hey, Runners Only, yeah, let's get it started. Hey, this is Runners Only with Dom Harvey. Fast paced, slow and steady, anywhere you coming. Just wanna connect for everyone who loves running. This is Runners Only, yeah, let's get it started. This is Runners Only with Dom Harvey. Fast paced, slow and steady, anywhere you coming. Just wanna connect for everyone who loves running. Hey, Runners Only with Dom Harvey.
Runners Only with Dom Harvey and Nick Ashill. Hello, mate.
Hello, Dom. Nice to meet you.
And nice to meet you as well. We're in your office at Wellington University, and you've just recently returned from an epic adventure in the United States of America.
Yeah, I've been back now 4 days. Body is just coming right in terms of jet lag, so that's really good. Yeah, it's lovely to be back in the beautiful Wellington weather. Awesome.
And you're not joking. It is on this particular day, July the 2nd, 2022. It's a nice day in Wellington.
Yeah, it is. Every day's like this in Wellington.
Bullshit.
Apparently.
Yeah. So, so this adventure that you've just returned from that we just mentioned before, it's the craziest story. Running the length of America, Route 66, from Santa Monica and in California to whereabouts in New York do you finish?
Yeah, I finished Coney Island. I wanted to put my feet in the Atlantic Ocean, which I did. So you're right, started at the end of Santa Monica Pier on the 14th of May, 2017, and finished 21st of June, 2022. So I think I might hold the world record for the longest time to take him to run across America.
So, a lot of people are thinking 5 years to what was he doing? Like 3 kilometres a day? But no, it's a hell of a yarn, and not a yarn that you'd wish upon anyone. So we'll go back to the beginning of this challenge. So your mum passed away in 2015.
Yeah, that's right. So she was diagnosed in 2013 with a horrible disease of the lungs called pulmonary fibrosis. It's a progressive lung disease, no cure. And very, very few people knew about it then and still don't know about it now. So one of the objectives through running across America was to play a role in generating more awareness of this horrible disease of the lung.
How do you go from I'm just trying to see the logical conclusion here, and I don't see one.
Well, there's another side. In 2014, I'd run Marathon des Sables, Sahara Desert, Morocco, and the truth is I was looking for that next big challenge both physically and mentally. And I'd always had this, since I was a child, this fascination with Route 66. And rather than, like most people do, midlife crisis, they go to buy a Harley or rent a Harley and drive it, or a Mustang. I thought, damn it, I'm gonna run it. So the passing of Mum gave me an opportunity to honour her passing and raise awareness of the illness, but also to
do something pretty cool at the same time.
Absolutely.
And what a cool thing to do. So I suppose a lot of these questions I'm asking from a selfish perspective because I know that I would like to do this, and I know a lot of people listening would like to do this at some point. So how much planning goes into it? Most
people have a support crew. There are a few crazier runners that do go unsupported. But for me, that support crew was really, really important.
Yeah, so you had like a camper van, or
we would we rented an RV out for 3 months back in 2017. Support crew were phenomenal. Daughter, father-in-law, and 2 other close friends that came in. So the support crew actually rotated. The logistics involved and the planning, a good 18 months. We had
that so?
Yeah, I had to raise a lot of money, because it does take a lot of money to actually make it happen. Get some sponsorship in place, and the training required was pretty rigorous as well.
Yeah, how do you train for something like that? And part 2 of this question, I guess, is what was your target per day? Did you have a per day target, or?
Yeah, well, most runners when running across the states tackle a route further north because of lower temperatures. Route 66 is actually quite south, so I knew I was going to be confronting 30 plus degrees Celsius pretty much most days, particularly early on, and that was the case in California, Arizona, and New Mexico.
So what sort of training is required? Is it just like is it doing like big consecutive days, or is it something different?
It is. It for me, it involved anywhere between 30 and 60 to 70 kilometers, 6 days a week. So I was putting in massive Ks. But to come back to your original question, the target each day back in 2017 was around 50 to 55K.
Unreal.
And if I look at the average, I averaged about 53 Ks a day over the duration back in 2017, over the 81 days that I ran.
Unbelievable. So what was your goal originally back then, like to do it in sub 100 days?
Yeah, that's a great question. The answer is yes. I wanted to dip below the 100 days, but the day I got hit, that was day 81, and I've just finished it in the last part of the run in 21 days with 2 days rest and 19 days. So it took me just over 102 days.
Oh, that's not bad.
So I'm deeply disappointed.
Well, so you're running like over 50 kilometers. By the way, for anyone that's not big on their running, 42 kilometers is your standard marathon. So 50 Ks is like doing an ultra marathon each day. So is it just hard in the morning when you get started until your muscles warm up, or does your body progressively get more tired, or does the body adapt?
Well, again, great question. If I go back to 2017, the first kilometer and a half was always a little bit challenging in terms of warm up. But when I got into it, after time it became a huge drug, and to the extent that during the rest days, I got very, very frustrated and very agitated because I wasn't running. So the body certainly does adapt. Going back this time to finish it off was a little bit different because my body structurally is a little bit different now.
God, you must have seen some crazy sights on the way. Like, yeah, I mean, we'll get to day 80 later, but
yeah, lots of interesting wildlife. I think one of the special moments I remember interacting with 2 coyotes in Arizona that were actually circling me. Part of Route 66, a big chunk of Route 66 no longer exists. Interstate 70 has actually been built over it. Now, it's illegal to run on an interstate in the US for obvious reasons, but there were times when I had to do it, and I was regularly stopped by local state troopers to actually get off it.
So you were sort of on a trail on the side of the road, or?
Well, it was a trail on the other side of a fence line,
okay.
But you needed trail shoes because it was essentially dried mud. But that was pretty cool. But it generated a lot of blisters at the time.
How far away was your support crew? Were they sort of like slowly cruising along with you, or would they drive to the next town?
They would typically, over a sort of 50, 55K stage route each day, we'd work out a point after about 18 to 20 kilometres, where I'd typically refuel with breakfast, and then we'd work out another 18 to 20 kilometres, stop 2, and then that final stop for the day. So it was broken down into three stages, which is really good.
What sort of pace were you doing? Were you just not like 7 minute Ks or
back then? Yeah, 7 to 7.5 minute Ks was pretty much the standard.
Wow, so you're sort of running for like how many, like a 10-hour days sort of thing?
Yeah,
with
I
the
think
breaks?
the shortest day was around 6.5 hours. If I go back to my journal, the longest day, 9.5 hours. So really, really long days. Fuel, because you're burning anywhere between 7,500 calories, which is huge. So you're constantly in deficit, but you need to give the body as much time as you can to recover. But you're constantly in deficit.
So what did like an average day look like? Give us a snapshot.
Yeah, an average day would be waking up at around 5:30 in the morning, taking on a big protein shake, a couple of bananas, blueberries was very much part of my daily morning routine, plus avocado.
Because you'd always be in calorie deficit, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. And I was on, back in 2017, unlike this time, the return, I was on a keto diet. And I'd been on that keto diet for about 12 to 15 months prior. So I had to be really, really careful what I was fueling my body with. But that will be the start of the day. And then stop one after 18, 20K. Massive amounts of eggs and sweet potato, cheese, again, avocado, blueberries, coffee, black coffee, coconut milk, coconut oil, olive oil on anything that I could eat. But it really did work for my body at that time.
Yeah. So you eating like a bastard all day. So then what time were you sort of finishing most days? Just
again, depending on it did vary depending on the elevation. I did get some big elevation in parts of Arizona, but so waking up at 5:30 on the road by no later than 6:15. I think the earliest would have been about 2:30. The latest I do remember at 7 or 8 p.m.
Right,
maybe a little bit longer. That was a tough day, probably because of 1,300 meter climbs. Yeah,
and then what did the evenings look like? Were you just like crashing out straight away, or were you doing fun stuff with your crew?
Yeah, back in 2017, one of the things that we got my father-in-law into was Breaking Bad. So that was an awesome.
That was like Walter White's vehicle.
Absolutely, no, you're absolutely right. In fact, he did. He never watched it before, and it was really, really cool to sit down with him from season one. I mean, I watched it many times, but it was awesome to go back to it.
Were you still married at the time?
Yes.
Wow, what an understanding wife.
Yeah.
To let you. How did you get this over the line?
Well,
I'm asking on behalf of
Sarah. Got enrolled in the idea pretty quickly, and she really helped greatly helped on the social media side. Designed and implemented a website for the run, helped with sponsorship. It just went on and on and on. So she really got behind me.
That is so good. You must have a good relationship with her father as well, if he's coming and joining you on this.
He did have some back issues, which I wasn't aware of, at the time. But he was phenomenal. He took the responsibility for driving the RV. And, did an awesome job.
So, Dan, did you have a favourite place
in 2017?
Yeah.
Did I have a favourite place? There were so many.
Yeah.
There were not just one. I think part of the California desert, because of its tranquility, is really special. And Route 66, the road is it's dead straight. And there's nothing else on it. Occasionally you might see an occasional car every half an hour, or a motorcycle, or a group of motorcyclists. That was pretty magical. Being out there on your own, and there's nobody else there. That was special.
Yeah, because when you hear Route 66, I don't know. You just imagine it being kind of busy.
Yeah, I mean, parts of it were. But particularly early part of the morning and later on in the afternoon, there was so much tranquility, and the colour just changed, and the rattlesnakes on the road as well. Huh.
Yeah, so where are the rattlesnakes? Like on the road, or in the sand on the side of the road, or what?
All over. Some were roadkill in the middle of the road, so they certainly weren't moving. Others were just on the side of the road. Others were just simply crossing, and. I could certainly recall on some occasions, because Route 66, part of it, you're just looking straight ahead and you're running straight ahead. You're not looking down. And I had a few close calls in terms of where I was stepping and a few colourful words at the time.
Well, what's the story with rattlesnakes? Like, are they, do rattlesnakes, do they sort of seek out humans, or
no?
Do
From
they
my
only...
understanding, typically where there's noise around, they'll just move on.
Right.
But
right.
if they get agitated, certainly you don't want to be interacting with them.
You must have got a kick the first couple of times you saw them. Just the novelty factor.
Yeah, absolutely, and quite frightening. Frightening in the sense that my running pace increased to begin with.
Yeah, what are these 4-minute kilometres? Oh, that must be the rattlesnake. Okay, let's fast forward to day 81. Day 81. So where are you?
I am about 5-6 miles west of a small rural town in Ohio called West Jefferson, which is about 30 or so miles from the capital, Columbus.
Right. So at this point, it's like 80% of the run's done.
Yeah, 80% is done. And I was actually 1 week ahead of schedule. And I was starting to think that I could actually finish this.
In under 100 days.
In under 100 days.
Yeah.
But
so when you're 80% of the way in, like, I don't know, like, I suppose you count from halfway, you're counting down rather than counting up. But 80%, it's almost job done.
Yeah, that's right. At that point, you'd run just over 2,500 miles.
Yeah. So you're running the stats. Starts like any other day. You're up. You're having olive oil. You're having your eggs.
Yeah. Had all of that. Remember leaving the RV, according to my journal, just a little bit later that morning, around 6:30 on US 40 because it'd come off Route 66 several hundred kilometres before. Heading towards Columbus, dual carriageway, always run into the traffic for obvious reasons. Yes. Nothing on the road at that time of the morning, 10 past, 8:15. I was on a hands-free Skype call with Sarah and the girls who were on holiday, and dark-coloured pickup truck on the outer lane of the dual carriageway. Just one vehicle on the road, nothing else. Didn't think anything of it at all. And then the truck moved from the outer lane to the inner lane. Didn't think anything of that either. And then with 50, 60 metres out, increased speed, came onto the hard shoulder where I was. And I, for a split second, I thought I'm gonna be hit, and I attempted to jump a small metal railing on the side of the road, and I remember getting my left foot up, but I wasn't quick enough, and I got slammed on my right side at 100 km an hour, tossed in the air. I remember that bit, and landing on my back in a ditch that wasn't visible from the road, which was a bit problematic because any cars going by couldn't actually see me.
So you said you were on a Skype phone call at the time. So where was your phone? Did you manage to hang?
The phone was in my running pack.
Right.
And the positive thing about this, even though the phone was thrown from my pack, it was still working.
Right.
So the real horrible thing is that Sarah and Bella and Abby heard my screams. But the positive is that I was still able to have a conversation with with Sarah. So
the call did not disconnect.
No. So she was able to alert official state troopers and my support crew, and then there was a process of trying to find me.
So you were communicative through the whole thing. You must have been in excruciating pain.
Well,
or do you think adrenaline kicked in on you?
Well, that's interesting. I didn't feel anything. I know it's maybe the shock through the body. I remember looking down and obviously my leg had snapped and I could see open bones with the open tip of fracture. But I didn't feel anything. But I had no idea of what was going on with my pelvis that had been crushed and it rotated, so it had done essentially. I know you can't see this, but it had done this. But I had no idea about that.
You must have just been in shock, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember looking down and thinking, and I mean, joking because that's just part of who I am. Joking thinking, shit, my run's over.
And it really was.
Yeah.
You've got absolutely no doubt in your mind, not 1 ounce of doubt that this was deliberate, like the driver swerved.
No question.
What a piece of shit.
From me. I mean, the driver didn't stop, but something that you learn about in hospital and subsequent investigation by authorities there, that part of rural Ohio has one of the highest opiate rates in the US. There may have been alcohol involved and a combination of drugs. I mean, I'm assuming that the individual knew what they were doing. I don't know that. They might have no recollection of it whatsoever. But what I do know is that 100% certain with regard to the pickup truck on the outer lane at the very beginning, there wasn't any deviation or erratic driving. So I'm making the assumption that he or she knew.
Unbelievable. So Sarah gets on the phone, lets your support crew know and lets state troopers know. Then did she know exactly where you were, or were you able to give her
it was just through questioning. So it was just through a series of questions, and the critical question was, had I passed the local airfield? And the answer is no. So they were able to determine roughly the area that I was in.
How you remained conscious and able to communicate is something of a miracle, I guess. Like, luckily, there was no head injury involved, I guess.
Yeah, I did have a concussion, but fortunately, that was really minor. That's a good point. If I'd been hit head on.
And okay, so you're there for 50 minutes. Are you on the phone to Sarah the entire time?
Yeah, until the phone died. That was after that. That was shit. Because it was a really dark time, and I remember all I wanted to do was sleep.
Was that the concussion?
I think it was the whole trauma and shock really kicking in with the body. And I made that decision. I remember I made that decision. I'm going to sleep. But then I heard voices, and it was medic first aid responders, state troopers, and apparently a helicopter.
You never felt like it was a matter of life and death? Well, you did at the time. Like, were you sitting there thinking, "Fuck, I may not make it out of this alive"?
There was a moment when the phone died that I made the decision I have to do something myself because nobody's coming. I mean, I didn't know that people were looking for me.
What could you do though?
Well, I tried to crawl out. I was on my back on a slope in a ditch, and I tried to crawl out, but I couldn't, and I couldn't work out why. But obviously, I know now is because of the state of my pelvis.
So you're just unable to move?
I was unable to move.
When you heard those sirens or those voices, that must have been one of the happiest moments of your life.
Yeah, it was pretty special. And then airlifted by helicopter. The road had been closed at that point to Ohio State University Hospital, which became home.
And then straight on the opiates like everyone else in that town?
Pretty much. Pretty much. I'm glad I got off them quickly, though. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So do you remember much about those first couple of days in hospital?
No, if I go back to the helicopter ride, I just remember just flashing lights. And the doctors and nurses, when I arrived at the hospital, told me that my language was really, really colourful. And it wasn't directed at them; it was directed at the person who hit me.
But well deserved.
No, answer your question, no.
Yeah.
I just slept, and really for the next 6 weeks, I slept 18, 20-hour days.
Was it just the drugs, or just your body trying to heal itself?
I think combination of both.
Yeah, and then so how long are you in hospital there for?
In Wexner, the brain and spine unit for 2 months, and then I had a third month in a rehabilitation hospital, which was attached to OSU, and then after that, about another month outpatient, and then had final medical permission to fly, but I had to be accompanied by a nurse and flew back to the UAE, where more surgery to address internal injuries.
Right.
So it wasn't just pelvis and broken bones. There were a whole heap of other stuff.
Did anyone remain with you in the States, or did your daughter and your father-in-law and your support crew, did they have to?
Well, Pete, my father-in-law at the time, he'd already left because we had a sort of a change around in the support crew. So it was Emily, daughter, that stayed, and Kieran, who was another member of the support crew, he stayed, and Sarah flew in from Cyprus with Abigail, our youngest, who would have been just under 10 at the time. Bella was still in the United Kingdom at school. So complete change around and life change. Massively life changed.
Did it? How so?
Family moved.
Yeah.
We rented a house just outside Columbus so I could carry on with rehabilitation.
Right. Now, how many operations? How many surgeries in that
16.
time? Fuck.
16, yeah.
Why so many? Did they just have to fix you bit by bit? Or?
Yeah, bit by bit. Fragments of bone from my pelvis pierced my bowel. And that wasn't picked up immediately in hospital. So I developed a huge infection. Sarah told me several months later that she needed to give permission to one of the surgeons to take off my right leg because of the infection. But the surgeon, God bless him, won that battle. I still have it, which is good. So as a result of the infection, I lost a lot of tissue. So muscles, the aggressive muscle, does bugger all in the left leg, had to be moved to protect my pelvis because of the tissue that was removed there.
Yeah. Geez, it makes you wonder how many 50-50 calls there are in medical situations like that in regards to removing the leg. Because here you are, you're running again.
Yeah, I was told.
The leg's good.
I was told that I probably wouldn't run.
Yeah, were you? When were you told that?
By a wonderful guy, the orthopedic surgeon. But he emphasised the word probably. He didn't say
absolutely not.
Or absolutely not. And that was the word I needed to hear because it really gave me the self-belief that one day it might be possible. One day.
So you're in hospital for months. You have operation after operation after operation. When do you get to return home? When does that happen?
In January 2018, and I got hit on the 2nd of August 2017.
Right. When do you decide I'm going to go back and finish this?
I think I made that decision as soon as I woke up after being hit. Stupidly. But
when you're 80% of the way done, like if you were maybe closer to California and just starting out, you'd be like, forget about it. But it was job almost done.
I know. And I say jokingly, the self-belief was always there, but perhaps a little bit stupidly. There's a huge difference between self-belief and actually making it happen, and the work involved to actually get back. Just the basic walking, let alone running, was huge.
Oh, the work involved in terms of like your rehab and things.
Yeah. It took. I attempted to give you an example. I attempted to start to run about 15 months after the accident, and I took 2-3 paces, and I fell over. And I was so angry and frustrated with myself. But clearly, I knew that my body, my legs weren't strong enough to do it. So I had to go right back to basics. And that was going right back to working on my core and strengthening my legs again in the gym before I could even think about running. And that's what I did.
Wow. So and then the COVID-19 pandemic comes along. So when were you planning on going back?
Yeah,
or was the lockdown and the pandemic a blessing in disguise because it gave you more time?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. But the original plan was I was thinking about going back in May 2020. That was the plan,
right? To
actually finish it. But pulled the plug on it in March. Spoke with the surgeons in the hospital at OSU, and they said, "Forget it. Rate of COVID cases here is increasing at a rapid rate," and we all know what happened thereafter. It was a good decision. So it gave me more time, and I was still living at the UAE at the time. So coming back to Wellington in late 2020 gave me the opportunity to put a lot more hill work in, which was fantastic because Pennsylvania was bloody hilly.
Okay, so you go back. This is just kind of recently. When did you go back to the States?
Yeah, I left on the 27th of May. arrived on the 28th, had one day in between to sort out food and logistics. I started running again. So day 81 continued on the 30th of May.
What was that like getting back there? Because you picked it up exactly where it was cut short with that accident last time. How did it feel? Was it I don't know, was it like a cathartic sort of experience or?
Yeah, it was. I mean, a lot of people have asked, why go back to the exact spot that you were hit? Some people have said, why don't you go back to the very beginning, Santa Monica Pier? I thought
Say
about
to them,
it.
why don't you go back to the beginning?
The answer is no.
Not a chance.
It was more symbolic.
It's quite poignant in a way.
Yeah, I didn't have any emotion on day one, running past the ditch, and there's a reason for that, is that I went back to it the night before, with Jim Wheeler and Jim McCord and Paul Wheeler, my support crew,
right.
Who have run across America themselves, awesome individuals, and had my piece with the rail and the ditch, and really to forgive the person who hit me.
No, fuck that guy.
Yeah, well, there's still a little bit
You're
part of that,
bigger man than me.
I needed to find peace with it, and I have now, which is good.
Well, I mean, you just, it's no good being angry forever, is it?
No, was I angry? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
For years, but it was also very destructive to my mental health. So post-traumatic stress disorder, which I was in complete denial about for a year. That was wrong. That led to depression.
What does PTSD look like?
For me, and it's quite common with this type of trauma, it was complete withdrawal, and sadly was withdrawing from people who love me the most, namely, my daughters and my wife. My body was, I've learnt about this subsequently, but my body was constantly, fighting or working through the healing process. So I found that at the end of each day, I didn't have any bandwidth to connect with people. And I really, really struggle with that. So seeking out professional help, but that for me, that was 12 months on. And that was too late.
How are they? The family's still together now.
Sadly, Sarah and I are no longer together, and I deeply regret that, but respect the decision that she's made. Still love it a bit. Having the support of Bella and Abby has been instrumental in me wanting to go back and finish it, and that's been fantastic.
Yeah. Do you think the marriage breakdown, if the accident had not have happened, do you think you'd still be married? Do you think that accident and the subsequent fallout played a part? I would love to think that will be the case. The reality is, I don't know. Yeah. Wow, what a thing to go through. And then, so the PTSD that led to depression. You'd never had any previous mental health troubles before this?
No, certainly not to the same scale or depth of as this one.
So how old were you at this point? What's your age?
I'm 57 now. At the time I started the run, I was 53.
Right, so you're in your mid-50s and you're dealing with mental health issues for the first time in your life. At that age, I suppose you feel like you're one of the lucky ones that you've got through unscathed.
It's the same with visiting hospital. I just visited hospital as a guest. I've never been in hospital until.
Oh, you made up for lost time.
But I made,
yeah.
How true that is.
Yeah, but you're right now. You're good. Yeah. Mentally, you're in a good space.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel really, really positive. About that. And I think part of it as well is actually going back to church. That's been a huge part of my life that I dropped for a very, very long time. And that's been extremely helpful in
Yeah.
putting me back on track, and being surrounded by people who show empathy and love me for who I am, and not judging. That's been
massive.
been amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's cool. Well, you bring into your life the people that you deserve, I think, don't you?
You do, and you certainly know the value. Boy, you certainly know the value of friendship and kindness. One of the biggest learnings for me is actually being able to accept the kindness of of strangers, whereas in the past I would have blocked that kindness out.
Would you? Why?
I think in a lot of cases for me, and maybe people can relate to this, you have this expectation that something has to be given back in return, but that's not the case. That is not the case. And if I go back to the doctors and nurses and physiotherapists that ran with me, they ran with me on that first day, 3-4 miles. That was magical, and the being able to say thank you to everybody at the same time, at the same location, that was very, very emotional.
Yeah, there's something really special about that, eh? Just that whole sort of full circle thing.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, so some of the medical stuff, who I'm guessing you were on a first-name basis with. Yeah, for a time there, you probably saw more of them than what their family saw of them. That must have been really special.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And, when I go back again, not to go to the hospital, I obviously catch up with them over a beer and a meal, which will be lovely.
So you pick up where you left off, and how many Ks are you running a day? Is it the same sort of thing as what you're doing, like 50K?
Well, the objective was to cover 40 miles a day. I realised very, very early on that my body, largely because of the hardware and the lack of dorsiflexion movement in my right side, I wasn't able to sustain that. So, come back to your question, I was averaging between 31 and 35 miles a day.
Lazy.
Yeah.
No, that's still tremendous miles.
So 50, anywhere between 53 and 58K a day.
Crazy. And what's that moment like where you so you end in Coney Island, which is part of New York. So I'm guessing when you get to New York, it gets exciting, but I'm guessing there's still a lot of real estate to cover from when you arrive in New York to get to the finish line at the coast of Coney Island.
It's damn big. So I could see the New York skyline from where we were the very, very last day. We left the RV. I could see it, and then we had about 5 miles to get to before we crossed the George Washington Bridge, and that's a mile long. So you cross over the Hudson, and then we joined a bike and running track all the way down to Lower Manhattan. Eventually crossed the Brooklyn Bridge into Brooklyn, and then another 6 or 7 miles down to Coney Island.
Oh my God, what was that last day like? The last day must have been.
Well, Paul Wheeler, one of my support crew, was running with me. It was the second fastest day in terms of pace. I don't know where it came from. I mean, it came from me. I was just running on adrenaline. I couldn't believe what we were doing. But to see the magic of that New York skyline. I mean, my first time in New York. I'd never been.
Oh, was that so?
Yes, it was really special for me. Yeah. The plan had been 2017.
Better late than never.
Better late than never.
Okay, so you get to Coney Island. Then what? Is that like is it what you imagined it would be? That moment when you finish?
Yeah, Coney Island is famous for its hot dogs.
Shitty little hot dogs.
And we were greeted by Anna Burns-Francis from TV1, and she bought 10 hot dogs, not just for me, but for the support crew as well, although I inhaled too. So that was really nice, and took my shoes and socks off and dipped my feet, my white feet, because I hadn't seen sun in a while, in the Atlantic Ocean, and that was pretty special.
Yeah, how good.
But I was, if the sea hadn't been there, I would have carried on running. My body had just
Adapted.
It just adapted, and they just wanted to keep going. So it was really sad that it was finished.
Was it?
Yeah, it was really sad.
In a way, like almost like a post. When you have a big goal and then you achieve it, and you have like almost like a drop off, like a mini sort of depression or blues after that.
It's something that Jim and Paul have talked about in their own personal lives when they finished their respective runs. Some of the depression, issues that both of them have confronted, and if you read all of the chapters in a wonderful book called Across America on Foot, that was published in 2019. There's 27 chapters of written by runners and walkers who have crossed the United States of America. They talk about the same thing as well. So you're absolutely right.
Just like an emptiness. Yeah. This must be an awful question, but you sort of, you've done this yourself. What's next? Because I suppose you do something like this and then people think, oh, what crazy thing are you going to do next? As if what you've done is phenomenal. It's amazing. But there's this expectation now that you're going to do something else to sort of top it, or is there anything else you want to do?
Yeah, I don't really think I'll really top this. I don't certainly want to be hit again. That's for sure. But yeah, I'm taking time to reflect and process and doing some writing. I want to write a book, about it, which I think would be pretty cool. But to come back to your question, Perth to Sydney is fascinating. That's a good 3,000 to 4,000 k.
That sounds so boring. It would just be desert the whole way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to. My old boss was an Australian guy, and I said to him one day, I said, "Oh, for my next holiday, I'm thinking about doing that train trip. I think it's called the Garn or something. It goes from Perth to Sydney." He was like, "Oh, mate, you know what's in the middle of Australia? Fucking nothing. Just fly."
He's probably right.
Yeah.
That's one possibility. Paul and I Paul Witter and I, we've talked about maybe, which is just nuts because this is twice the distance of running across America, but running from Alaska down to Florida, that would be pretty special.
Wow!
So that would be Alaska, Canada, and obviously through the States.
Oh, insane!
But we'll see. We'll see.
Life's
getting
good.
older.
Life's good though, isn't it? It's good to have these adventures and things that you can plan and look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely, and the connections that you make along the way, particularly with like-minded individuals. That's pretty special.
Oh, it's a great community, isn't it?
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah,
fantastic.
I say to people, like, one of the reasons I got into running is I liked the individuality of it, and the fact that you could put on your shoes, run from home anytime, day or night, and get it done. But so it was never a sport I got into for the community aspect of it. But if that's what you're into and you let them in and you embrace it, it's there and it's massive.
Yeah, it's very, very powerful.
It's a cool tribe.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Before we wrap up, we'll just talk about a couple of the other events you've done. You've done the Comrades Run, which is the world's biggest and I want to say oldest ultra event.
It may well be. I think you're right.
Yeah, this is probably number one on my bucket list of events I want to do. So part of me is jealous that you've done it, but it means I get to pick your brains about it. So describe the Comrades for anyone that doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, I did it with two awesome guys that I used to work with in the Middle East, Mitch and another Paul. We did it in 2013. It was the downward leg.
Yeah, because 1 year it goes down, then the next year it's the same event.
That's right, which we thought would be easier.
And it's how far? 90?
Wrong. It's 90K, and you've got a 12-hour time limit, although there are some time points that you have to meet along the way. But I can recall we came in at 11 hours 50 minutes. So we were in by about 10 minutes. But what was amazing...
What, did you get hit by a car or something on the way?
No, I got a few stories though. But I can recall at the finishing line, people were so close with seconds to go that people in the crowd, family, loved ones were in the crowd, had got out and were literally throwing. People were running across the line so they could actually finish within the 12 hours.
Nuts. Is it true about the cutoff thing?
Yeah.
So the race marshal stands there with a gun, with his back to the runners, and
absolutely. I mean,
if you're not there, you're there.
Absolutely right. That's what we saw.
That's brutal. That's part of the brilliance of the event.
It is. It is.
And how many? It's massive, right? Massive event, mass participation event. How many thousands?
I think, if I go back 30, 40,000, I think back, even that was back in 2013.
Wow. Yeah. Oh man, I want to do that so bad. And the other one is the Morocco one. What is that? Marathon des Sables?
Marathon des Sables.
Yeah. So this is a stage event.
Yes, spread over 6 days from memory. You're running 5 of those days. There's a wicked overnight stage. So Marathon des Sables in the Sahara Desert in part of Morocco. As far as sand is concerned, you're running up and down the highest sand dunes in Morocco. That's day one.
How many Ks on day one?
That was the lightest day, day one. I think it was around 40, 41, maybe 42. And the rest is hard rock.
Okay, so 40 Ks on sand, does that feel like a standard marathon, or does it feel like double the distance?
It definitely feels like double the distance from memory, largely because you can't run it. You have to take really long, deep strides. Because typically, one stride forward, you're taking two strides back, just because of the sand dunes that you're confronting. But the scenery is absolutely amazing, and the changing colour throughout the day is amazing.
Yeah, what do you mean scenery? Because all I can imagine is sand, as far as the eye can see.
You're absolutely right. But just the shadows of and how that colour changes over time.
Yeah, actually, I'm just glancing over at the moment to some photo boards you've got in your office, and it does look spectacular.
Yeah, it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Right, so day one, 40 Ks on sand, up sand dunes and stuff. Then day two.
Yeah, the details I know typically were around 45 to 50, but then the overnight stage, which is brutal, was certainly brutal for me. Is around that was around 70 to 80K. Like many runners, and this applied to me, I did experience hallucinations. I can remember turning a corner and seeing these lights at the end. It was the finish, and I thought, "Oh, fantastic! It's about 2 kilometers away." No, it's 20 kilometers away. I still had to go. I can recall running at night down a dry riverbed, and I swear to you, I saw kids on their bicycles and elephants in the river.
Wow! And you were convinced that it was legit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And pissing blood as well. That wasn't good. So but fortunately, that was the last.
Yeah, hallucinations and urinating blood. I mean, a lot of people will be listening to this going, "Man, it's not for me."
Yeah. But then the thing is, the next day was a rest day, but there was just a 145K stage the final day.
Yeah.
And then it was all over.
But so everyone in this event stays together in tents at night time. Is it a good vibe? Good community vibe?
It's a magical vibe, except if on sad occasions you might lose 1 or 2 people from each tent because they haven't met the cut-off times for the day. So if you don't meet them, sadly they actually take you out. You're asked to leave the tent, and they bust you out.
Don't even get to hang out with your mates.
No, we lost one in our tent out of 8. So we maintained that 7 throughout. But the attrition rate is overall is brutal.
Like on those sand stages, how do you avoid getting sand in between your toes, sand underneath the socks?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a huge believer in toe socks, and of course in that part of those extreme conditions, you're wearing gaiters.
Right.
So that just
do they work? They do the job.
They do if they're sized correctly and they're fitted correctly. If they're not, you've got problems from the start. But they do work.
Yeah, because on this photo board that I referenced just a couple of minutes ago, there's a photo of your toe with a blister. What caused that? By the way, it's a lovely photo board you've got, but that photo was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, eh?
Yeah. It's a gnarly looking blister.
It is, and I can certainly remember popping it.
God, that must have been satisfying.
It was. So I can remember going into the medical tent and seeing all these other runners just popping blister after blister after blister, and then treating it with iodine and just wrapping it up and toe socks back on, and away you go. It just became the norm, and losing a couple of toenails as well. That was normal.
That's a badge, really, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So where did the running start for you?
It would have started probably during my varsity days.
Yeah, right. So you're a lifer. You've been doing this. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but shorter distances. I mean, 10, 20 Ks, the occasional half marathon, and it was not until my early 30s that I started marathons, particularly the London one, which I've done many, many times, and then it just got longer and longer and longer.
I want to use the phrase midlife crisis.
Yeah, I've sort of gone beyond midlife now.
No. It does seem like a natural progression for a lot of us runners. It's like you achieve what you wanted with a marathon or whatever, and then you get a bit slower as you get older, so you just want to go longer. Seems like a natural.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I my pace was very, very good, but as a result of the accident, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I can continue to run longer for some strange reason. Yeah.
Well, I suppose it's one of those things. It gives you goals to set as you get older. Like your times are naturally going to get progressively slower as you age, but that doesn't mean the distances have to get shorter.
That's right, and those times become less important. They don't matter.
They don't. It's arbitrary, eh?
Absolutely.
Arbitrary. I set a goal to run a sub 3 hour marathon, and I tried time after time after time, and it got to the point I didn't think I was going to do it, and I ended up doing one in Tokyo a few years ago, 2 hours 57.
Fantastic.
It's one and done. And then after that, I thought, could I go quicker? And the answer I came to in my head was like probably yes, but I knew how much work went into running a 257, and I thought for the extra work required to run, I don't know, 255, 254, would it bring me that much satisfaction? And the answer I came to was no.
Yeah. But that's a fantastic time, phenomenal time.
Yeah, thanks. I think I'm one and done in the sub 3. But it's that's not like running fast or doing good times, which means something to me, but nobody else at all. That's not where my love of running comes from.
I connect with what you said. I get it.
Yeah. Get it. Hey, well, it's been wonderful to sit down with you today.
Thank you, Dom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick, for sharing your experiences. What a trip. And what a ride you've been through. I'm sitting in your office. You're a marketing guy, like a marketing professor. And in some dark way, when you were sitting in a hospital, were you like, oh, this puts a good twist on the story from a marketing perspective?
Not on the hospital bed, but a little bit later, that did come to mind.
This is going to make the book that much better.
Yeah.
In some sick, twisted, macabre way.
Yeah, well, the narrative has definitely changed. And I mean, joking aside, I can remember back in 2017 with getting sponsorship, it was tough.
Yeah,
but when you say you've been hit by a truck,
and you're going back to finish it,
people will say, "How can I help?"
Yeah,
it does it does make a difference.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Oh, do you wish to acknowledge any of those sponsors?
Boy,
too many to mention.
I would. No, they're a real core set. Shoe clinic here in Wellington, the owner Hamish, and that's through Hoka One, particularly the Clifton 8s that I've been wearing for a long time.
Oh, you're a Hoka guy, are you?
I am, yes.
Oh, likewise. Big fan. Yeah, never going to win any beauty pageants as far as shoes go, but very, very good.
Great support.
Absolutely.
And, Tailwind Nutrition New Zealand, with Mark Drew, and Tailwind Nutrition in the US were phenomenal, and a local kiwi brand in terms of nutritional snacks called Tom and Luke, which are based here just on the outskirts of Wellington.
Oh, I've seen them around. I've never had them though.
They're in the shops.
What are they, like bars?
They're I munched on hundreds and hundreds of their snackables, their strawberry and chocolate and their peanut butter ones. Just awesome. Hundreds of them munching throughout the day. So they'll be the three big sponsors. Yeah,
well, thanks for acknowledging them, because it's really good when you hear about businesses supporting someone that's going to go out there and give something courageous a crack. Yeah. All right, Nick Ashill, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dom.
Appreciate it, man. And maybe you'll do nothing of interest beyond this, and if not, that's fine, because what you've done is bloody incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for making it all the way through another episode of Runners Only with Dom Harvey. This week, Nick Ashill. As I do every week, just a reminder, if you haven't already, please drop us a rating wherever you listen to your podcast from. 5 stars would be ideal. If it's less than that and you're being honest, then that's cool as well, whatever. Thank you very much to everyone who's left a review, if your platform allows it. I know Spotify doesn't, but Apple does. I read these and I really appreciate them. Like, here's a couple that came through during the week. Every guest has been authentic and really interesting to listen to. Honestly resisted listening to podcasts since forever, but I can't get enough of this one. It's Kiwi as and tackles hot topics. Thanks so much. And here's another one that we got during the week. I've just started listening to this podcast as I have a 2-hour return commute to work twice a week. This is the only podcast I've listened to and I'm loving it. I have quite a few to catch up, but always like to see who's coming up next. Keep up the great work, Dom. Listen, I can't tell you how much these reviews, I'm being sincere here, mean to me. A lot of work goes into this. We're only 8 months in, but the feedback's good, the stats are good, and I know it's only a matter of time before we get some really good sponsors on board, which will allow us to grow this thing, get some staff, get some real good video content happening, and just take this thing to the next level. It's wonderful to have you guys along for the journey. I appreciate the support. Get hold of me anytime you want, domharveynz@gmail.com or domharveynz on Instagram. All right, stay safe. Hope to see you next week on Runners Only.